kind of crazy, really.
But let me say this much, man. It's opiates. Opiates steal your soul. And then look at these people that are hooked on medical opiates, like from the good old doctor. They're dying too. The death tolls every year for pharmaceutical drugs. It's no different. So we just categorize wrestling as a certain thing, but it's opiate addictions with depression. You combine those two things together, it's a fun nightmare, a fucking nightmare. We told this tons of times on one of my podcasts over at One Gimmick World that, you know, I used to tote Scott Hall around, like one of the last couple of years that he was in real bad shape with JCW. Whenever they bring him in, we just drove him around. He felt comfortable with us, you know, and after a while, it became an annoyance. We like marked out to it in the beginning, right? Because he's full of knowledge. Even wasted, he's full of fucking knowledge. Sure. But then it became a fucking nuisance. And one night we took him up to his hotel room in a wheelchair. He was all fucked up. And we wheel him in his fucking room and he stands up and he throws his arms. It's me and Brandon and my boy KG. And he like throws his arms around us and we're in like a huddle and he goes, "What do you do when you're at the mall and you're signing autographs?" And we're like, "What?" He's like crying. And I'm like, "This is Razor Ramon. This guy made it above everybody." I'm like, oh God. And at that point, man, I'm telling you, there's a huge part of me that checked out of the wrestling business. And I went, if he can't be fucking happy or successful, nobody fucking can. And it was one guy, one situation. I get it. But that's his perspective on what the business looks like at that point. That sucks.
Absolutely. Well, and let me ask you this. When was it that you decided that you were done with wrestling?
Like I said, that was probably a fucking pretty good time, but I had a couple phases of it. This is kind of, I could tell this a couple different ways, but I was 18 when I started, and I was a young 18. I looked young. I barely had a beard of any. I was a young kid, you know? And I remember the older guys, you know, hanging out around there. And this was right at the end of the 90s. So this is like the end of the territory guys that really didn't make it, you know? And they were telling the new local guys that were like this new fresh thing that got this new fresh deal. They were kind of against it. So it was like a whole thing, you know? I always remember telling myself then, like, when I'm that guy and I'm out of options, whatever that means to me at that point, I'm not doing this anymore. And JCW treated us great. We went all over the country. I saw some of the most, I've been to every state, man. I saw some of the most incredible shit on a Prevo tour bus, you know, sellout crowds. I mean, I got to see some cool shit. And I told myself when that was over, I was done. So that, like, we just did a bunch of tours together. And at this point, I'm a couple of years married. I'm kind of checked out at this point of wrestling in general. We lose the belts finally. We had it for like 3 years. We lose the belts, and I do an indie show like maybe a couple weeks later, and it was atrocious. And I got hurt, and I've never been hurt, and I got hurt. And I'm like, we go back to do the show a month later, and I get in the locker room, and I set my bags down and shit, and I look around the locker room, and I'm like, what am I doing here? It's not indie wrestling anymore. Every single person in this fucking back area, I'm better than. And I didn't mean that in like a conceited or cocky. They didn't belong in a professional wrestling locker room. They didn't belong in it. They didn't look the part. They didn't feel the part. Nothing about them said pro wrestler. Nothing about what they were doing said pro wrestler. It was embarrassing. It was fucking embarrassing. And I remember I called my brother the next day, who was my partner, and I go, that's it. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I took like a year and a half off. I went back and did one JCW show. We did this ladder match against the Rewriters, who was a team that we brought in over there, and we just have awesome matches. So we did one more there, and then 6 months later, or 4 months later, the Gathering. We worked London and Kendrick and the Young Bucks, and then I checked out. Those are my last matches.
And that was just it, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I know. Like for me,
never looked back. By the way, I'll say that much. Never like I don't ever go, God, I want that one more match. I don't ever do that.